Welcome to the Cheer Athlete. This week, we're going to talk about sprinting and the joy of running, mostly the joy of sprinting. If your cheerleader wants higher jumps, then sprinting just might be what they need to help improve that. Welcome to the Cheer Athlete podcast, where we bring coaches, parents, and athletes expert tips and advice to help keep cheerleaders healthy, strong, and at the top of their game. Now let's go. So back when I was in high school, because I don't really remember much before high school, we used to have to do a 1 mile run drill. And I remember having nightmares about it. I hated running. And, when you think on the scheme of things, like in track, and like a mile actually is a long run, but for marathoners, it's a short run. But a mile is a pretty long run. So in this episode, we're going to talk about sprinting and really like short distance running. We didn't do that so much when I was in high school. When I got to college, we thought as cheerleaders we needed to run for a warm up. So before we got to practice, when we got to practice, we would run as a team and run around campus. And I don't know, it was probably a quarter of a mile, maybe a half a mile, if that. And I was always sucking wind. I hated running. It just was never my thing. And when I was a grown up, I would try and do some running. And I'm not a big fan of running, but I did see the benefit of doing some interval runs and kind of trying to run as fast as I could. I got into a little bit of 5Ks, and tried to do that. It was really more for just added exercise and conditioning. And I enjoyed it a little bit more because I could see the value in it and I was listening to my headset. I couldn't see the value for running long distances and getting back to cheer practice and how that was going to help me. Because our cheer routines weren't really aerobic in nature. A 3-minute workout, it's high intensity for 3 minutes and then you rest. So everything was more high intensity interval. So I never really got the why are we running. Flash forward to when I was coaching, I would have my kids do some running around the mat and try and do some side shuffle and kind of just to get the heart rate up. And then transition into more of a dynamic warm up. I look back now and I think, was that really as efficient as they needed? More and more, I'm hearing about how sprinting is actually really important. When our athletes want to improve their jumps, they want higher jump height and they want their jumps to look prettier, or they want to be able to tumble more, and they want to have better flexibility. And what stretches do I need to do to help my jumps be higher, or to help my tumbling be better, or help my heel stretch be better? But really, what we need is more power. We need the power and the speed in order to be able to get that explosiveness off the ground and be able to then gain that height. So incorporating sprinting into our workouts can help to improve the height of the jump and our power in our tumbling passes, and it can help to control our landings. In a little bit, I'll talk about how that can help flyers and bases as well. And sprinting helps to do this. Sprinting can help the same qualities needed for those explosive jumps. I do have notes here, so bear with me as I go. I wanted to make sure I got some of this information right and make sure I give you some good quality info. So bear with if I'm reading this. So from on the traditional approach that we focus on flexibility and static stretching, I've talked about this to death, that we hold stretches and actually can inhibit muscles and make things a little tighter. And it's not training the mobility that we need and the ability to raise our legs. Like, yeah, they can move there, but we don't have that control. We don't put enough emphasis on the force production and that power needed to get off the ground, and creating elastic energy, which is like a recoil and allows us to spring up. We need more of that in order to get higher jumps. You're not going to jump higher because your leg is able to go higher. You jump higher because you have the ability to produce the force to get off the ground and do it faster. So sprinting actually trains this explosive force production. You get the maximal amount of force into the ground in minimal amount of time. The Journal of Strength and Conditioning, some studies between 21 and 23 showed that sprint training helps to improve vertical jump height and lower body power. Studies also show a strong correlation between sprint speed and jump performance. So sprinting actually helps to have better jumps and more power, more height in our jumps. The time that it takes to produce this force is really super important for improving toe touches and getting off the ground. It's really important for tumbling takeoffs. If you're slow in your round off or you're running into the round off and you don't have that power to get into it, that's going to limit what you can do into your handspring and advanced or more, right? So if you're struggling to get over in the hamstring, you might actually need more power coming from your run, more speed and your takeoff. So sprinting can help with that. In some studies in that Journal of Strength and Conditioning, again, in between 2020 and 2024, it showed that faster athletes had that faster rate of force production, and there were better jump outcomes in the process. So in sprinting directly trains this rapid neural activation that you get that quicker response time and you have to get off the ground quickly. This also tends to improve tendon stiffness and in a good way to create better elasticity. And in doing that, we create energy storage and then explosive power. So it trains that explosive system and creates better movement through the tendon in the process. Some research showed that sprinting and plyometric training improve that stretch shortening cycle, which is, according to Google AI, the stretch shortening cycle is a muscle action where you get a rapid eccentric contraction, which is lengthening, immediately followed by a concentric contraction. If we are doing bicep curls, because it's easy to demonstrate here, when I shorten my muscle here, this is a concentric contraction. And then as I come down slowly, that creates an eccentric contraction. And so if you're holding a weight, I hold my water bottle and I'm lowering that extra slow, I'm getting strength. Even though I'm lengthening the bicep, I'm getting strength into the bicep. And then that immediately, that lengthen, as we get there, it creates a stretch reflex that makes the muscle shorten to get that shortening contraction. I get a little complicated. This mechanism stores elastic energy in the muscles and tendons, enhancing force and power output compared to isolated contractions, making movements like jumping, running, and throwing more efficient. Let me repeat all that. So the stretch shortening cycle is a muscle action where rapid eccentric contraction is immediately followed by a concentric contraction, that shortening contraction. And then this mechanism stores elastic energy in muscles and tendons and enhances force and power output compared to isolated contractions, making movements like running and jumping and throwing more efficient. So super important to be able to work that stretch shortening cycle, and sprinting and plyometric training both help to improve this. So plyometric training is jumping. So box jumps, split squat jumps, gator jumps, those kind of things. That stretch shortening cycle is the foundation for having higher jumps, having better landings and rebounds. I can remember teaching some of my cheerleaders, they need to land their handspring, they need to rebound it to go. And if they're just having a dead landing, they don't have that, their body doesn't absorb it. That can have ripple effects up into back pain, let alone the power that it takes to get into the next sequence that they're doing. And it helps with, again, rebounding into another jump. So if you're doing double jumps, that just creates that better explosive force. So sprinting in itself contributes to a whole body conditioning or whole body coordination. It integrates the foot, the ankle, the knee, the hip, your core, your arms, and your head. Those all need to move together in sequence. We need a lot of rotation as you're running and you're sprinting. And so when I talk about 3D motions, we need to move in forward, back, side to side, and rotational planes. Sprinting will do that for every joint from the bottom up. So how is that important for cheerleading? When we jump, whether it's a toe touch, a pike, or a hurdler, or double jumps, we need that quick force off the ground. We need our ankles, our knees, our hips to all react at the same time. And it helps with that control when we get into the air. It helps to improve the takeoff power. We come into our approach and we land, and then we have to float off the ground. That's where that sprint reflex comes in. Same thing on a round off. You hit your jog and you hit your run, and then you get into your round off and you get that rebound effect, and it gets that takeoff power to get into that. In the tumbling, if the sprint goes into a hurdle and then into the round off, the sprinting as an exercise will help to improve getting into the approach speed and then transition actually into tumbling. Let's talk bases and flyers. So the working on sprinting is going to help get some explosive power and explosive drive from their legs to be able to go from a set position up to whatever stunt you're throwing. You create that, you really develop the leg strength along with your core to be able to get that explosiveness up. And then for flyers, it helps to improve body tension and timing. So getting better awareness and getting that eccentric control with that sprint, that shortening cycle will help to create better tension through the body in a good way. Sometimes we don't want muscle tension. When we're at rest, we don't want muscle tension. But when we're up and we're working, the flyers are working, they have to work to control that. And so sprinting can help the timing of that and be able to create that tension as well. Why don't most cheerleaders train this? Why do most cheerleaders just run or don't do any running? Because running may seem like they need more space. It's hard to get some sprints. I have people sprint in the clinic. My clinic there's probably, you might have seen my YouTube videos, the space that I sometimes will film some videos in with a green turf. It's probably 25 feet to maybe 50 feet. It's not that long of space, but you can get a little speed. And somebody that's coming back off of a surgery, you can train there. So you don't really need a lot of space. Most times we think, oh, I need to have a football length field to be able to do it. Are you going to roll an ankle? Are you going to pop an Achilles? Or, is it going to blow my hamstring out? Is it really cheer specific? I would argue that sprinting is more cheer specific than doing a longer run. There's need for both in training. And, I think we need to develop both systems. And certainly the longer runs will help our endurance to be able to go longer at practice and to be able to go out so that 2 minutes and 30 seconds doesn't seem like a long time, because it's not. But the sprinting is actually, it trains our cardiovascular system more like what we're doing. If you're sprinting for a distance and then you take a break and you let your muscles recover, and we stunt for a time and we come down and we transition. Yes, those, you can make your case for having a 2-minute sprint, for going longer in your sprints and doing more intervals that way. But that time frame has to be hard and fast, and you're really working on the sprint mechanics. So a shorter distance is better when you're training that. So how do we incorporate this? Again, if you're going to include cardiovascular, you include workouts in your time that you are training, put your workouts at the end. I would put sprinting at the very end, and think of sprinting as being fast, powerful movement. And that's exactly what cheerleaders need. So it is very important in the training for cheerleading. How can you start adding this into your workouts? So as we're coming into the down season for All-Star and the off season for high school, you should be thinking about starting to ramp up your strength and conditioning programs. And you should really be starting to think about, how am I going to train to do the next year? So if an All-Star, consider this a month later. So high school's done in most areas. Maybe they're having tryouts now. You have off until the start of the fall season. These next 3 months is the time that you need to really dial in your strength. You need to start building strength, doing higher repetitions, building that contraction, and getting body position awareness. And the sprinting will help that. So how do you add that in? For a beginner, you want to aim for twice a week and maybe 3 to 5 sprints total, 10 to 20 yards. If somebody's really beginner and struggling with it, absolutely start at the 10 yards. most cheerleaders should be able to do 20 to 50 yards. If you think on a football field, so it's half of a football field, you can make them starting off super easy, do half of a half, just to the 30-yard line. Start from the end zone to the 30-yard line. If you're on a track, sprint the length of the track and then walk around the rest. You really want to give yourself a good rest in between. You don't have to lay down, take a nap, but sprint hard and as fast as you can, and then walk or just kind of let your heart rate come right back down. And you're only going to do like 3 to 5 of those. Someone that's a little bit more advanced and a little bit more conditioned and is ready to go, they can do a few more sprints, maybe 5 to 8. They might go a little bit longer and hit that 50 yards. They can add some resistance in. I really have a love-hate relationship. I worked out at a gym one time. We would work with a partner and wrap a super band around our waist, and we'd have to run up the hill, and then we'd walk down and we'd reverse, and they would run up the hill, and we'd have to hold them. So you're getting a great workout on the person that's holding, but also the person that's going up is getting some resistance in that. And just running uphill can be training enough. So you could run on flat ground, resisted, or push a sled, or you could do some running uphill and just do the, run uphill and walk downhill. And then advance, put it together with plyometrics that you're incorporating. Maybe I like to do plyometrics at the beginning of a workout, get through your strength workout, and then get into some sprinting for your finishing your conditioning at the end before you stretch. Some cues that I think are really important. You're going to kind of lean when sprint. The difference between running longer distance, I think you stay more upright. But when you're sprinting, especially if you're going up hills, you're going to lean into it a little bit more, which is actually going to load into the glutes a little bit more. So you're leaning in just a little bit, not like you're totally bent over. And then use your arms to help. And you're really going to push the ground away from you. Try to push as hard and as fast away from you. Still staying tall for your head. You don't want to get your head popping forward. You want to keep that chin tucked and neck long, but leaning your body in and staying tall through here. And then working on control before you work on speed. So just make it happen. Get comfortable going up and down the, incorporate do the short distance as fast as you can with control. Over time, as you're advancing, work on the speed of it. And that's going to help create that more stretch reflex and get that power development. Some things you want to avoid, turning it into conditioning. So we're not looking to do this with no rest. You want to do the sprint and let your heart rate completely come down, let your muscles recover, shake it out a little bit, get some water, give yourself enough time. We're not looking to get that higher intensity. That's going to train a different system and not give you as much explosive power. Looking at mechanics, are they leaning backwards as they're going? Are they, you can make corrections on foot mechanics, depending on how somebody runs. If it's not hurting, I'd say don't worry about it. Make sure that they're not doing too much too soon. If someone's not used to doing sprints, they shouldn't be out there doing a half an hour of sprint work. It should take them 5 to 10 minutes. And then key thing that I talk about all the time, they need to do a warm up. You can make a case that you are doing a strength workout Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and on Tuesday, Thursday, it's going to be a sprint workout. And that's your whole workout. But you need to do a warm up beforehand and ideally do some cool down afterwards. So remember, we're not just training muscles. We're not just stretching the hamstrings to make, the jumps get higher. We're not just working on leg raises and lifting it up and over. We need to train the movement. We need to train that explosive power. Sprinting will help to improve strength. It helps to improve coordination. It helps to improve timing of jumps, and it really helps to improve the power. I know I'm going to be starting to add these in. It's an excuse. I don't have a treadmill, and in the winter, I'm not running outside. I'm going to start adding some sprints into my workouts as we get into spring and summer now. And I live on a hill, so I can start I actually need to start on the flat surface because I haven't done it in a long time. And my body isn't going to react like a young athlete is going to. And I'm going to work up, and hopefully by the end of the summer, I can do 3 to 5 hill repeats and really challenge my muscles and create some better mobility and strength. The other thing I really like, you get a lot of glute strength, which helps on your rebounds also. So as an adult, it's really important. It also helps to create some better bone density, which let me tell you, start to teach your kids about that now. We'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks, but I think that's super important, paying attention to that. So if you want a structured plan that combines strength, mobility, and power, I have strength and conditioning programs. I'm going to have a summer program out. If you're interested, just let me know. And there's always my injury prevention starter kit, which will talk more about. I don't have much about sprinting in there, but I do have a bunch of warm-ups and cool downs, and then other information about why it's important to strength train. And I am almost finished with the Move Better app, which is going to have individualized movement screening and create some different exercises for you to be able to do for your cheerleaders as well. So if you're interested in that, just please, leave a comment if you're watching on YouTube, or find me on Instagram. That's just as easy. And just send me a quick message. Hey, heard you have this. Can you tell me more? There's no commitment to buy anything. And when I launch this app, it's going to be free for the first people who try, and then the founders will have a lower rate then as we go forward. So if that's something that you're interested in, just let me know. And as I have that available, I will absolutely make it available to you. So I hope that was helpful. Really important for you to incorporate some sprinting into your workouts, into your cheerleaders workouts, and only twice a week. It's gonna be high impact. It's gonna be higher intensity, but you have a longer rest period in between. It's not a 30-second on, 30-second off. Give yourself a good 2 minutes to rest and recover, to really develop that power and create that elasticity in our joints. That will help build the power, get higher jumps, get better rebounds, to be able to tumble stronger and have less back pain and shoulder pain with our tumbling, and to be able to get more height when we are progressing into our advanced tumbling. It's going to help your bases to have better power in their legs to be able to drive up more, and it's going to help your flyers have better control and stability because of training it. If this was helpful and you found it valuable information, please subscribe to the podcast and share it out so that more people can learn about sprinting. I really appreciate you listening, and it means the world to me, and I want to continue the message and continue to spread the word to help cheerleaders stay safe and on the mat. So get after those sprints. Have a great week. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe out. Take life one step at a time. You can do anything you put your mind to. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Let's go get the day.